NXT No Mercy took place tonight in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the FTL War Memorial, and what they kept telling us was in the shadows of Miami. See, they weren't technically in Miami, Florida, but they wanted you to think they were because it's more appealing to say we're in Miami rather than Fort Lauderdale, which is right next to it anyways. So we start with some shots of Miami, the city, and then we see Lola Vice, Jacy, Jayne, and Fallon Henley, Jordynne Grace, Blake Monroe, Ricky Saints, and Oba Femi all arriving at the FTL War Memorial for No Mercy. Then we get our opening video package. First match was Javon Evans against Josh Briggs. So Briggs got the heat for a while, and I just thought, man, Briggs sucks. He's so sloppy. He messes up a lot. He's out of place many times. He just botches so much. I'm thinking to myself, why does this even need to be on the show? The last match they had at the previous PLE, I believe, Heatwave, wasn't that good anyway. So I guess it's a showcase for Javon Evans, but Javon was just on SmackDown. And one thing the announcers brought up that made sense was, why is Javon Evans taking a match for the U.S. title right before the night he has to wrestle Josh Briggs in a blood rivalry? Shouldn't all his focus be on Briggs and not Sami Zayn? But they did mention that. So Evans hit some dives, fans got behind him, and then, Briggs just had so much botches. I'm thinking to myself, this guy sucks. I don't want to see him. He had Javon Evans kick out of a choke slam, and while I'm watching this, there's a really bad botch in which Javon is being pinned and Briggs pins him, but Briggs was supposed to bridge him in a way where Javon's foot would go on the ropes. So Briggs literally had to push Javon Evans' leg or his foot onto the rope, and it looked awful. He's just a big slog. He reminds me a lot of a younger Baron Corbin in NXT, and that was not good because he was awful. Eventually, Javon Evans counters a chokeslam into a cutter. Then he hit the springboard cutter for the win. The ending sequence was good. I'll give it that. It did pick up near the end, but I did not like the match overall because Josh Briggs sucks. So they randomly decided to show what's called a No Mercy Classic. I wouldn't call this a classic. From 2023, which was Dominic Mysterio against Trick Williams. Okay, better said less about that than the better. Whatever the saying is, yeah. That match was not very good. Dom's not very good in the ring, to be honest, and Trick sucks. So they show highlights from the NXT TNA Brawl, which took place this past Tuesday on NXT. They show Kalani Jordan winning the TNA Knockouts title last night at Victory Road, and Indy Hartwell, formerly on the main roster, was the special guest referee. Then they show Kalani cutting a backstage promo after becoming the new TNA Knockouts champion. We had Vic Joseph and Booker T announce that Lainey Reed was not medically cleared to compete at No Mercy, so there would be a replacement. Ruca makes her entrance, which was appropriate because she's a surfer and it's in Miami, aka South Beach. And her surprise opponent turned out to be Jaida Parker. That's a major upgrade from Lainey Reed, I have to say. So we get the Women's Speed Championship, Ruca with Zaria in her corner against Jaida Parker. 5-minute time limit. I used to think it was just 3 minutes, but I guess for the speed title, it's 5 minutes. And I'll admit, I've never actually watched a speed match on X when they had that deal. So this is really my first speed title match I've seen. I mean, there's been plenty of speed matches, but those were mostly just qualifying matches on NXT. So this is the first time I've actually seen a speed title match, I think. Match was fast-paced to start. So we go near the end, and what happens is Jaida Parker hits the hypnotic on-soul Ruca onto the outside, but then Zaria gets in her face, Jaida pie faces her, and then Lash Legend comes out, and she is about to go after Jaida, but Zaria decides to spear Lash Legend, taking her out, and then Jaida Parker gets in the ring, but right when she gets in, Ruca hits the Soul Snatcher on Jaida and gets the win. So Ruca retains her title, as good as you can expect for a 5-minute match. They really don't get much of a chance to tell a story, but they had Ruca retain, which I guess makes sense to continue the storyline with Jaida Parker and Lash Legend. They show footage from Tuesday with Joe Hendry being interviewed by Kelly Kincaid after the show. She's interviewing him in what I think is catering. It's a kitchen. I guess the kitchen for catering. And then Dark State walks in. They warn him. They're teasing that Joe Hendry could either fight them again or he might actually join them. I don't see that happening. Dark State sucks. And then we go to the weaponized steel cage match, the match that I personally was most looking forward to. It was Jordynne Grace taking on Blake Monroe. So we had Jordynne making her entrance and then Blake coming out, both of them wearing attire that's more suitable for a fight than a wrestling match, which I appreciated. We really don't get much of that anymore. So we had a whole bunch of weapons that were tied up onto the cage. We had pink chairs, which were Blake Monroe themed. Also pink trash cans, Blake Monroe themed as well, with trash can lids. We had kendo stick, a pink kendo stick. You also had a bat that I believe was pink, or maybe it was black. I don't necessarily remember. You also had bags, and then you had tables, of course. So plenty of weapons to go around. So what happened was Blake threw Jordynne into the cage multiple times early on. Blake is really getting the heat. And then a kind of spot which I didn't really expect to see. It wasn't necessarily a holy shit in terms of a big spot, but it was kind of a holy shit in terms of an act in which Blake Monroe ties Jordynne Grace into the ropes, not into the cage, but into the ropes. And she uses a hairdryer, and she opened up a bag earlier. I think it was actually a purse, and it showed a whole bunch of her items, hair liner, blow dryer, and she doesn't use the blow dryer. I mean, you can't. Where are you going to plug it into? But she ties up Jordynne Grace into the ropes, and then she takes scissors, and she begins to cut her hair. To get a lot of heat, and I thought this would have just been better doing this on Tuesday on NXT to hype the match. I mean, doing it in the middle of the match really doesn't make too much sense, and I assume those were probably just extensions for Jordynne Grace, so I'm not sure how effective it was, but or how real it was, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure if she's actually cutting her actual hair, or maybe Jordynne wants to get a haircut, I don't know, but they did do that spot. Blake uses a trash can and the lid. She almost was teasing Concerto with the trash can lid and the trash can, but she didn't do it. Then she dumps a bag of diamonds. People thought it's the thumbtacks. We never see thumbtacks, but the black bag was diamonds. We see them on the canvas, which looked pretty cool. And it looked painful, to be honest. That would actually hurt a lot getting slammed into those because it's not a smooth surface. When you're getting slammed and the floor is smooth, it hurts too. But when it has like bumps, it's like it pierces your back and it's uneven and it just kills your back because it's an uneven landing. So Jordynne Grace actually suplexes Blake Monroe onto the diamonds, sort of, kind of, and it looks good. But actually, Jordynne took a bigger fall from that because her back was actually cut up a bit from the diamonds. So she took the match and the story was Blake getting slammed, but in reality, it was actually Jordynne who took more of the blunt of that damage, to be honest. She cut up pretty bad on her back. So you had also a good spot in which Jordynne Grace was put upside down in a trash can, and you had Blake drop kick the trash can while Jordynne was upside down, and it was actually a good visual. Eventually, a table is set up, and then the two of them sat on top of the cage. They climb to the top, and they begin brawling. Then Blake throws powder into Jordynne's eyes, and she has her down. She looks like she's going to tease like a sunset flip powerbomb through the table, but Jordynne counters, and she hits an air raid crash off the top rope through the table for the win. She pins Blake Monroe. Jordynne Grace gets the win, and it seemingly, what I saw was, it kind of seemed like that's the end of the feud. That's it. Jordynne Grace wins the feud. She goes to the main roster. That seemed to be it. Because what other stipulation can you do that's going to top a weaponized steel cage match? You're not going to do TLC. What's going to I mean, what else can you do? I mean, I guess you have Halloween Havoc coming up, but I don't see another stipulation that's going to go above that. I mean, you can't increase the scale past this type of stipulation, I don't think. So it seems like this is the end of the rivalry. Maybe not, but Jordynne Grace gets the win. Probably her biggest win in NXT so far. They plug Halloween Havoc, which is next month. The announcers then send it off to the GM. Eva announces an Invasion TV special on September 7th. Not a PLE. I think that's pretty lame because Invasion was the biggest non-WrestleMania buy rate of all time. That show in 2001 in which WCW stars invaded the WWF, that was the biggest non-WrestleMania show of all time in terms of buy rate. It was a massive show. Kind of sucks. It's just a TV special. If you're going to bring back that name almost a quarter of a century later, make it a big show. So Lash Legend comes out and she brags about costing Jaida Parker the match. She cuts a promo on TNA, then she mentions Jaida again, but Jaida comes out and attacks her, then they're pulled apart. That sets up a match on Tuesday. Kelly Kincaid interviews Lainey Reed after she's pulled from the match tonight, and then Lola Vice walks in and she goes up to her and tries to give her friendly advice, but Lainey insults her, and I just thought right there, okay, it's obvious Lainey's going to cost Lola Vice the match tonight, and that's exactly what happened. Spoiler, we'll get to that later. So Lainey's practically now part of Fatal Influence. They show us highlights of more NXT No Mercy classics. Joe Hendry against Trick Williams from 2024. Anything with Trick Williams is the opposite of a classic because Trick Williams sucks in the ring. Trick Williams and a wrestling classic are like oil and water. So we go to the NXT North American Championship. The match I was probably least looking forward to. Ethan Page defending against Tavion Heights. Match was just super boring. I think Ethan Page just bores me. I don't see him as having any natural charisma. Just some regular guy who's a heel and has an evil smile. I don't see much in Ethan Page. Match was boring. Ethan hit a power slam from the top, which was a good spot, I have to say. Then he hit the Twisted Grim for the win. Match was alright. Should have just been on TV. Didn't need to be on a PLE. After the match, some AAA guy who can barely speak English appears on the screen. I really didn't give a shit. So backstage, Kelly Kincaid interviews Miles Bourne after he defeated Lexis King on Tuesday. He wants to be the captain of Team NXT against TNA at the Invasion. We get an Instagram video of Mike Santana cutting a promo on Trick Williams. We see Lola Vice and Jacy Jayne heading to the ring, and then they show us another No Mercy classic. This time was actually a very good match between Jaida Parker and Roxanne Perez from last year in 2024, in which Roxanne Perez retained the title in a very good match. Roxanne was an awesome NXT Women's Champion. Speaking of Roxanne, she had a match with Lola Vice that was way better than the match Lola Vice had tonight with who is what I think the worst NXT Women's Champion of all time. Anyway, Lola Vice makes her entrance. She embraces her family in the front row. And I didn't think Lola would win. And when I saw her family and she seemed very emotional, I thought, it's a good sign. Maybe she's winning. It kind of reminded me of Stephanie Vaquer at the last week's show, at the WrestlePalooza show, when she's very emotional coming out. And I just thought, all right, Stephanie's winning, which I expected anyways. But when I saw Lola get emotional and her family started, I thought, oh, maybe Lola's going to win this. Oh, unfortunately, the awful reign continues. So, Jacy Jayne makes her entrance accompanied by Fallon Henley. So, entrance is kind of different because there's no Jasmine, but there is a third member now, unofficially. We get the NXT Women's Championship match. Jacy Jayne defending against Lola Vice. So, Jacy gets the heat for a while, especially after Fallon Henley distracted Lola. Lola rallies, fans get behind her. Fallon Henley pulls out the referee. He ejects her, so she's kicked out. Jacy hits a back suplex from the top, followed by a running knee, but Lola kicks out. Lainey Reed is the one who cost Lola Vice the match because Lola hit the spinning back fist, but she fell out of the ring. And then while the ref's distracted, he's looking at Jacy, someone kicks Lola, and it's exactly like Lainey Reed's finisher, and it's obviously Lainey Reed. So Laney Reed's in Fatal Influence. I thought that would happen in my predictions, but I didn't think that they would pull her from the match with Ruca, so that would actually makes really good sense. So Laney cost Lola the match. She kicks her while she's on the outside, and then once Lola gets in the ring, they tease she wasn't going to make the count, but she makes the count right at 9, but then right away she gets hit with the rolling encore by Jacy Jayne for the win. This awful women's title reign continues. Jacy Jayne is the worst women's NXT champion of all time, and sadly she will continue to be champion as now Laney Reed is part of Fatal Influence with Jasmine next gone. And Jacy Jayne celebrated with Fallon Henley after the win. Match I didn't think was very good. They show us some TNA reactions from the night, and then they preview NXT on Tuesday. Ricky Sainz is out first for the main event, followed by Oba Femi, and we get our main event championship match for the NXT Championship. Oba Femi, the Ruca, who's been champion since January, defends his title against Ricky Sainz, and this was a very good main event. Not a classic main event, but a good one. So Oba got the heat for a while, and then Ricky makes a comeback. Ricky almost hit this really great powerbomb, which I almost thought looked like a last ride. It was so good, especially how big Oba is. So for him to lift him up is a really impressive feat of strength by Ricky Sainz. Ricky almost... there were times where it looked like he was going to lose, but he kept battling back. A lot of counters here, a lot of near falls, several teasers of false finishes and stuff like that. Eventually, Ricky Sainz counters the fall from Grace, and this is probably supposed to be the biggest spot of the whole night. So you had the announce table. Oba takes all the stuff off the announce booth. He has Ricky up. He's going to hit the fall from Grace on the announce booth, but Ricky counters and hits a DDT. Unfortunately, the table doesn't break, so what Ricky does after that was he hits another DDT, and this is kind of like a tornado DDT on the outside, and this is on the mats. I'm thinking to myself, it would have been more effective if you just threw him through the announce booth, but the announce booth didn't break. Ricky hit the first DDT on the booth, which, as I said, didn't break, and the second one on the floor. He throws him back in the ring. Oba is he then hits just this sadistic, and I mean a sadistic chop onto Ricky Sainz, knocks him down. He hits the fall from Grace. It looks like it's over. 1-2. Ricky Sainz kicks out, and then Ricky Sainz counters a second fall from Grace with another DDT, and then he hits a fourth DDT, this time another tornado DDT, onto Oba Femi, and he pins him. 1-2-3. That's it. Ricky Sainz is your new NXT champion. He pins Oba Femi clean in the ring, and that's how the show ended. The show ends with Ricky Sainz celebrating as the new NXT champion. Not a huge surprise, but kind of a surprise to me. I had Oba winning, and I did all my predictions, but this was a very difficult show to predict. A lot of these matches could have gone either way, and Ricky Sainz wins. He defeats Oba Femi, and he's your new NXT champion. So we'll see what happens next. They're going to focus heavily on the TNA invasion. That's going to be the next storyline for the next couple of weeks. Then we'll head into Halloween Havoc as spooky season is almost upon us. So that was NXT No Mercy. And the announcer said in this new rivalry at TNA, the invasion, NXT will have to show no mercy.